Hi guys, how are you all today? Sorry I missed yesterday. Found it a little bit difficult getting on live. I hope you're all well. It's great to be here with you today. What a super busy time. Wow, it is a really busy time for everyone. I'm clients back to back, and then I've got a Christmas outing this afternoon. I've got a Christmas get together tomorrow afternoon, so it's been chockers back to back, but I hope you're all well, and I hope that you're all looking after yourself and just finding some time in the day to breathe and take some stillness and just step back from everything that's going on. So welcome to today's live. Today I'm going to be just broaching the subject of leptin and leptin resistance. Now, this is a very important hormone, particularly for those of you that struggle with weight and struggle with what you eat. So maybe you never feel satisfied, you're always craving food, you find you need to eat something sugary or sweet, or you're craving fruit, or you actually just find that you've got that resistant weight. You know, you there's just something missing, you've got that resistant weight, and you, no matter what you do, you just can't seem to lose that weight. Now, leptin resistance is pretty common. And the reason it's common is, you know, over the years, diets such as low fat, high sugar, high carb diets, constant dieting, you know, so being on Weight Watchers for a long period of time, those kind of diets, input versus output. So for a long time, the paradigm has been exercise more, do more, exert yourself more, have less calorie input, that calorie restriction, and that less input versus high output has also had an impact on leptin long term. Another one is high sugar and high fruit diet. So there was a period back when was it with the beginning of the beginning of the 2000s, there was like a fruit juice. Lots of people were having fruit juices, and I remember fruit juice for breakfast, orange juice for breakfast, that kind of thing. And the fruit juices and the fructose is something that can actually impact leptin and cause leptin resistance. And that is one of the big things as well with a lot of people that are having fruit for breakfast. And then another thing is stress. So we know how tricky cortisol is. Cortisol is a good hormone in small amounts, but in high amounts, cortisol actually impacts all the other hormones in our bodies. It sits on receptors and it causes havoc. It can stop the uptake of estrogen. It can stop us using leptin. It can stop us using progesterone. It can stop us using thyroid hormones. So cortisol in high amounts can actually cause issues with leptin and ultimately leptin resistance. So we all know about insulin resistance. Insulin resistance is where we eat sugar and we keep on eating sugar. It's a little bit like Peter cried the wolf, you know. So we have sugar, our body tells our pancreas, and then we secrete insulin, but then we have more sugar, and then we have more sugar, and eventually we have so much sugar and we're pumping out insulin, and then our body kind of just gets deregulated, and that happens to leptin. So basically leptin regulates our hunger. You know, it helps us to know when we need to fuel our bodies, and it will switch off that need if we don't need that input. So signs that your leptin are out of balance, you know, we've got obesity. Obesity is a big one. If your leptin is out of balance, you'll really find it hard to lose weight. Another one is that feeling unsatisfied at each meal. You know, kind of when you have a meal, you eat something and you finish that meal, and then afterwards you're kind of like, I'm missing something. I feel like something different, maybe a bit of sugar, maybe a treat, maybe even some carbohydrate, or just something. You feel like something afterwards. Then there's that need for more food. So you're eating, but then you just eat more, and you overeat, and you eat more, and you keep eating, and you really don't have that switch and that trigger to say, stop eating, you're full, you're okay. Then we've got the persistent snacking. So if you need to snack constantly all day, that can mean your leptin is out of balance, but also that will push your leptin out of balance. Hi, Erin. And definitely definitely what the signs of leptin imbalance will actually cause the leptin to be resistant. And when the leptin's resistant, we're not using the leptin. So really it's about getting our body back in tune, and it's about resetting our body so that the leptin can start to make us feel satisfied, and the leptin can tell us that we need food or we need to stop eating food. So we've got two appetite hormones, and I will talk about ghrelin in my next live. But basically ghrelin tells us we're hungry, time to eat, comes from the stomach, secreted in the stomach, tells us to eat, and we know it's time to eat. Now what leptin is meant to do, leptin is meant to actually tell us you're okay, you've eaten, there's plenty of food about, so you can stop eating and you can wait till your next meal. But because of things like low-fat diets, the issue with low-fat diets, and there's nothing wrong with going on a light-fat diet or a low-fat diet if you're doing a cleanse, nothing wrong at all. I mean, I always like to, it's always good to give your body a rest from a macronutrient, you know, have a little time of carbohydrates or have a little time of fat or have a little time of protein. There's nothing wrong with that because it just gives that rest to your body. It rests the liver. You don't need to use those enzymes so much. So there's nothing wrong with a little bit of a rest. But the issue with having long-term low-fat diet is that it tells our body we're in starvation mode. Food is scarce, so what we need to do is we need to eat so that we can store fat for the coming starvation period, the coming months, the coming winter. The hormone that tells us that is leptin. Eat and store, eat and store. That's what leptin does. Eat and store fat, eat and store fat, eat and store fat. So if it's not in balance, we'll just be eating and storing fat. We won't even be using the energy in the food. We'll be triggering it to store in our body, and we'll still be hungry. And so the idea is to regulate leptin so that when you eat, you feel satisfied. When you eat, you're not craving food. When you eat, that feels like it's enough. And when you eat, you're happy that to wait till the next meal. There's none of this kind of like I need something else, I feel unsatisfied, there is something else I need. So that's the goal here, to feel satisfied after each meal. Now for a long time, again, the paradigm was eat every 2 hours. And really that kind of mentality has meant not only have hormones like progesterone become lower, because every time we eat we lower progesterone and we raise cortisol, so it's really putting our other hormones out. But not only that, the more we snack, the more we're actually giving ourselves leptin resistance. So it's really important to work on certain areas in your diet to help with that leptin resistance and help to stabilize that hormone, because if you don't stabilize that hormone, you're never going to get your appetite under control. Your appetite's always going to have control of you, and it's going to be really difficult to feel satisfied between meals. So the first thing you need to do is that first meal of the day, you know, when you wake up in the morning, to reset leptin. And I'm not saying you have to do this every single day for the rest of your life, but if you want to work on resetting leptin for the next 4 weeks, what you need to do is when you get up in the morning, have yourself either a savory breakfast or a higher fat breakfast. And that savory or higher fat breakfast helps to reset leptin and helps to start to get it circulating, and your body starts getting receptive to the leptin. Does this also affect good, bad on the thyroid, especially those who have hypothyroidism? So leptin does regulate metabolism. So metabolism and leptin do go hand in hand in terms of the two hormones. So normally, if we've got leptin resistance, we'll have problems with our metabolic hormones, and our thyroid hormones are our metabolic hormones. But definitely high cortisol and high stress will inhibit your metabolic hormones. So when you get stressed and when you get high cortisol, it'll actually sit on the receptors and it will prevent that thyroid hormone 4 being converted into thyroid hormone 3. But if you've got leptin resistance, there is always going to be an impact on your metabolic hormones. It's not going to be good. If you've got your leptin imbalance, it's going to have a better impact on your metabolism and a better impact on your hormones. Remember that your metabolism and your thyroid, they're one in the same thing. If you've got a low thyroid, if your thyroid's not working properly, if the medications are not working, or you can't convert to T3, or your thyroid gland's not producing T4, or your pituitary is not producing TSH, then that's going to have an impact on your metabolic system. It's going to slow your metabolic system down, and then that's going to have an effect on your leptin, or vice versa. Your leptin is going to slow your metabolism down. So yes, they're definitely interlinked. So starting the day with a savoury, also upping your fat, upping foods that not eating more necessarily, but giving your body foods that are telling your body that food is not scarce. You want to give an innate signal, to your body that everything's okay. And it's very interesting. Our body doesn't necessarily recognize what our mind is thinking. Our body goes by different signs. So, for example, a really good example is I saw a client the other day, and we were talking about stress, and I said, do you feel stressed because you're displaying signs of stress? And she says, yeah, I do feel stressed, but I just tell myself not to feel stressed, not to feel stressed, not to feel stressed. But what I noticed is she was very shallow breathing. And I said to her, and I pointed this out, that no matter what you tell your body, no matter if you're having a massage and sitting, no matter what you're doing, if you're shallow breathing, that's going to be giving an innate response, feedback to your body telling you you're in danger. No matter what you're doing, you might be thinking the nicest thoughts, but if you're shallow breathing, it's going to be telling your nervous system that you're in danger. And the same goes with food. If you're giving yourself very, very low fat food, just vegetables, without a little bit of oil or without a little bit of avocado or maybe some nuts and seeds, you're giving this feedback to your body that this is the only food about. This is all we've got. So what we've got to do is we've got to eat more, crave, eat, and store. So the idea is when you have things like salads or when you're having your vegetables, is to intersperse it with a little bit of fat, like sauteing your vegetables in a little bit of butter, olive oil over your salad, or some avocado in your salad. I mean, I don't know about you, but one of the reasons that I started looking into this stubborn weight, and it was probably back in 2012 or 2013. It was something that was very common. And, what I would see is I would see people come into my clinic not eating much, but not losing weight. And it was really, they were starving their bodies, and their leptin was out, their cortisol was high, and it was causing all sorts of problems. So make sure you interdisperse food. So even if you're on a diet, even if you're doing a diet, and even if you want to follow, Weight Watchers or whatever it is, make sure that with your salad there's that little bit of fat, that little bit of avocado, that little bit of olive oil, that gives that body internally the message that food is not scarce. There's plenty of food about. Another tip to help regulate leptin is the exercise you do. So if you're doing intense exercise, particularly in the morning, that can actually put leptin and can put your blood sugar out. So if you're sensitive to early morning intense exercise, you do need to be careful. You'll know if you're sensitive. So if you're one of these people that does, say, spin class in the morning, so you do spin class in the morning, and then you spend the day hungry, you know that wasn't the right thing for you. Hi, Tanya. Thanks for joining. Definitely protein intake. So anything that feels like it's a little bit more calorie high, you can do the protein. So I'm trying to think. So in terms of food that would interfere with leptin resistance in a negative way would be, say, maybe just a bowl of fruit for breakfast. So if you've got leptin resistance and you just had a bowl of fruit for breakfast, that you're more likely then to up the fructose. That would put the fructose up in your body, and that would cause more issues with the leptin. So having something like, say, eggs and sauteed vegetables for breakfast, and a little bit of butter or a little bit of oil would be fantastic. Even a good quality piece of protein like, you know, grass-fed sausage with some vegetables would be better to reset your leptin. And if you are one of these people that prefers kind of like the sweeter cereal type, then even, you know, you could try something like maybe a quinoa porridge with coconut yogurt, because that's got the fat, and maybe some nuts and seeds. So just bulking it up that way. Even oats can interfere as well. So I find I have some clients that are wonderful on oats. They'll eat oats, and the oats will keep them full to lunch. And so that's a good sign. That's a good sign that, okay, these oats are filling you up. Your body is working really well in terms of the appetite hormones, in terms of what it's doing with the energy from the oats, and you're full and you feel good until lunch. On the flip side of that, I do have some people that might have oats for breakfast, then they're hungry an hour and 2 hours later. What this tells us is their body is just, their metabolism and their hormones are just doing different things. So if you eat oats or you eat fruit or something in the morning and you're hungry 1 hour or 2 hours later and you're craving stuff, that tells you that that breakfast you had just isn't working for you. So tweak it, bulk it up, maybe a little bit of extra protein, maybe a little bit of extra fat, and see how you go. If you can't have high fat because you don't have a gallbladder, go a little bit of medium fat, and then, like you said, Tanya, just up your protein intake. That's the best way to do it. So if you're one of these people that do intense exercise early in the morning and you're left craving foods for the rest of the day or grazing for the rest of the day, then my advice is check your exercise later on in the day. And probably for you, the best time to do an intense exercise routine would be like 4 in the afternoon. So in the morning, you could do something like walking, you could do something like a little bit of weights. You could do something like a little bit of yoga, but just be careful. If intense exercise makes you ravenous the rest of the day, even though you've eaten, it's a sign that it's interfering with your hormones. So maybe you've got to watch doing that and watch what's going on there. Now, one of my favourite ways to balance out leptin and also to balance out ghrelin, which I will talk about next time, because these two appetite hormones, they're so very important for not only how we feel, they'll stop us from feeling tired, they'll stop us from craving foods that aren't so good for us, but also they'll help with overall metabolism, and they'll help us lose weight or create muscle or build muscle if that's what we want to do. Getting these hormones in order it's more catabolic. Anabolic, not catabolic, anabolic. So it's like a growth. They help with growth. What about the take on fasting? So not having breakfast till noon, is that okay? So here we go. These questions are great questions, but it really all depends on the person. And I'll try and think of the simplest way to. I have actually done a live on this, but I think of the simplest way. So what fasting does? Fasting can help to regulate hormones. It can help to your growth hormone, and growth hormone is vitality. Growth hormone helps with your longevity, and fasting can also help to regulate your appetite hormones. So it's a great thing to do, except it's not a great thing to do if you're highly stressed, if your hormones aren't in balance already and you have a really stressful job, if your cortisol is really high, or if you're a woman and you have really elevated testosterone, because it can go the other way. You need to make sure that you're in a healthy place to start to do long-term fasting, and a bit of fasting is okay. So for example, with me, I went through a phase of fasting, not fasting. I was doing a bulletproof coffee, which I loved. Bulletproof coffee, it was good. It gave me energy, and it gave me kind of clarity of thinking. But what it did, because I measure my hormones and I track my hormones, what doing the fasting and just having the bulletproof in the morning did is it put my cortisol up immensely, and it reduced my progesterone quite a bit. So for women, you just need to be careful with your hormones. If you feel your hormones are in balance, do it. If you want to do fasting for short term for weight, give it a go, but just be careful how you feel. If you get any anxiety, if you get any heart palpitations, if your periods change, if you start getting grey hairs or you start aging a little bit more, just check in with your body. If you do your fasting and you feel relaxed, you feel happy, you feel content, you feel strong, you feel focused and calm, then yes, it is working for you. But my favorite, you know, I'm still a fan of 3 meals a day, to be honest. For women, that's where I keep coming back to again and again and again. I just think breakfast, lunch and dinner. Breakfast can be fat and protein, so vegetables with some form of protein, or a green smoothie if you need to cleanse. Lunch, you know, salad with a bit of protein, and then dinner, lots of vegetables, soup or a stew or something like that. That's just what I see works, but you can intersperse that with some fasting. Or what you can do is you can just push out dinner a little bit more. So you could have dinner, say, at 7, and then what you could do is you would then have breakfast at 10 or 11. But here's the thing, if you wake in the morning and you're stressed and you've got lots of jobs to do, or you've got to look after your family and you're running around like a headless chook, or if you go for an intense exercise and you do all these things in your fasting, please just check in with yourself. How do you feel? That's all you need to do. Check in with how you feel. If you feel good, okay. If you feel calm, okay. If you feel any anxiety at all, if you feel any out of balance, then it's maybe not working for you. So that would be my advice with fasting. It can be wonderful for longevity, concentration, definitely feeling that sharpness in the head, in the brain. It can be good for weight, not for everybody. It won't work for everybody. That's the thing. It depends on hormones. So if you've been fasting and not losing weight, you might need to try something different. Have a look at your appetite hormones, have a look at your thyroid hormones, and see what's going on there. So resetting leptin is about telling your body that everything is okay. So 3 meals a day is a good way to reset leptin. Not snacking, not grazing, but having your meals and having really well balanced meals to tell your body that food is nice and plentiful. So leptin, your body will then over time learn to become unleptin resistant. So in terms of myself, when I was a vegetarian for a long time, and I used to graze an awful lot. You know, I'd eat nuts through the day, snacks through the day, because I wasn't getting enough energy input. So I would graze all day, and that actually put I became leptin resistant. So I was hungry all the time, and I would eat, and I would need something different. So I probably got my leptin back in balance in terms of my body was responding to leptin. I did it within about 6 to 8 weeks of doing 3 meals a day and not having any fruit or sugar, and so maybe a little bit but not too much, and so that's how I did it. So if you think it's really out, you can get it tested. But if you think you are leptin resistant because you suffer from either obesity, or you're unsatisfied after your meal, or you're craving food, or you need a bit of sweet after your meal, just try resetting with the 3 meals a day, no sugars, no sweet things, and try that and see how you go, because it can work quite quickly. So that's how you do it. So I hope that helped you. Leptin, talking about leptin, the appetite hormones, is pretty cool because it's one of the ones that I've noticed dramatically